Homes this afternoon. Sam Monaghan is the Chief Exec of Methodist Homes and Andy White is the Director of Property. We have a long association with Methodist Homes going out through different parts of the connection, and making real those connections is, I think, something which is very, very important. Kathleen referred to Methodist Homes this morning, so delighted, Sam, that you're with us, and over to you.
Thank you. We're really pleased to be here, and I'm glad, like you found your way back here. We got lost on the staircases coming back from one of the rooms, so it's good to see you all. I've been with MHA for 14 months now. I am a Methodist. I am married to a Methodist minister, so I know our stuff, and I know what it is to be in connection, and I know what it is to face some of the pressures, particularly around property, that are faced across the connection. What I want to do this afternoon is talk to you a bit about really where MHA is going. And we've just launched our new strategy, and we want to talk to you this afternoon about one particular element of that strategy, which is about connecting in communities. I think it's fair to say that clearly MHA was born from the Methodist Church 75 years ago last year, and was very, very close in terms of the way it evolved and developed, particularly around legacies, particularly where people left property for MHA to develop its homes and schemes. And we have walked in partnership with the Methodist Church during those years. I think more recent years, we have become a little bit more separated. And one of the mandates I got when I got the job was we want to come back into a closer relationship, into a closer partnership with the Methodist Church. So one of my key objectives is around how we do consolidate and build that relationship, and it's part of our strategy going forward. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about the strategy stuff, and then Andy is going to come and take over in an Ant and Dec style and do the bit all about what's going on with our property and our property review. Am I the one with the big forehead or not? I don't think so. So, first of all, what we're going to cover is I'm going to talk a bit about our mission, our vision and our strategy, and then lead into the review of our property and services, then the proposition that we want to share with you in terms of our direction of travel, and which we are already working alongside Methodist Church colleagues, property committee, in terms of that conversation and that discussion, and then obviously at the end some time for questions. We've just restated our mission as a charity, which is to enable people to live later life well. And it's very much for us, as Kathleen was saying this morning, about what is it that we can bring to pass that really enables people to live fulfilled lives, a life of agency, a life of purpose, even if it is in the latter part of their lives, and they are rejuvenated by that. And we are very clear that we are inspired by our Methodist roots, 75 years young, but those are our values. They are at the core of who we are as an organisation. Our vision over the next 5 years is to connect our communities, and by our communities, I don't know how close any of you are to MHA, but we have 3 really key strands of work. We have our care homes, which we have 90 across England, Scotland and Wales. We have retirement living communities, which have got varying degrees of care and support for. And then we have 60 live-at-home schemes, which are very much community-based, addressing those key issues that Kathleen was talking about earlier in terms of loneliness and isolation, and working often very much out of Methodist churches with Methodist volunteers supporting those both practically and also in terms of their resources. Because what we want to do is we want to increase the reach of our charity. Currently we work with about 18,500 older people every year. We want to increase the impact in terms of the quality of the work and the care and support that we provide, so that we are enhancing their lives and enabling them to be lived well. Our strategy is very simple. There are 2 internal bits and there are 2 external bits, and this is my lead into what we really want to talk to you. The internal bits are about our people. We are a people-centric organisation. We don't survive without our people, much like the Methodist Church doesn't. They are our resource, which enables us to provide the care and support we do. We need to invest in them. Probably like the Methodist Church, all our systems and processes aren't necessarily up to date, fit for purpose, and we need to do some work around those so that we are a contemporary organisation able to demonstrate due governance and ensure that we are working efficiently and effectively. The outward-facing bits in the pink colour are enhancing later life, and these are our bespoke services. We provide a chaplain in all of our homes and often into many of our retirement living communities. We provide music therapy into all our homes where we have dementia, and we provide significant support around end-of-life care and also in terms of dementia, where we've created a number of innovative strands of work. And what we want to do is make sure that we share those more broadly and then demonstrate and innovate into new areas. But here's the crunchy bit, and this is the really big bit for us going forward in MHA. MHA and community. Our three types of work have not been working in harmony with one another. They've been working in silos. Care homes, retirement living, and our community services, and they've not been connecting closely in order to yield some of the additionality that you can get when people do work together. Our community service has a real engagement with its local communities, with its volunteering, with other agencies in those areas, particularly with the church. Not just the Methodist Church, but sometimes other denominations and other faith groups. And we want to make sure that that is really borne through into our retirement living and our homes. But some of our challenges are that we have grown very incidentally and opportunistically, right from our first beginnings. We have grown in a way where people left us resources in terms of money or in terms of property, and we have developed our services there. As time has gone on, we've then acquired new homes or built new homes where there's been an opportunity to do so, and it's not necessarily been in the same place. So some places we've got lots of our services all co-located in a similar area. In others, they are very random and separated. And we need to find a way of actually enabling those services to be more supportive of one another, but also to be better engaged, those that are particularly the outliers, with their local communities. When it comes to the church, we are really keen that we already have a relationship with many churches where we do have the volunteers, where we do have the active support, particularly through things like MHA Sunday, which is on the 9th of June, if anybody hasn't got it in their diaries already, plug, whereby we get both resource in kind and in fund to enable us to do the work that we do. Clearly, the charitable sector, the charitable market, the volunteering market is now a much more crowded place than it was when MHA started out. And as a consequence, our fundraising has diminished, and we need to really re-engage and re-enliven that, because it's that money that enables us to do some of this additionality around things like music therapy, our chaplaincy, our work with end of life, and some of the other innovations. So we need to be better connected and better linking with our churches. And also, we are very conscious that there are a range of churches who have at times approached MHA in the past, where, as you were hearing and discussing this morning, they have faced particular challenges because the congregation may be diminishing, there may be particular challenges with the asset stock. So actually they've been wanting to have a conversation with MHA about whether there was a possibility to redevelop, re-engage in terms of that. And in some places we've been able to do that. But we want to have a far more strategic conversation with the church about where we go in the future with that. So that actually, if we are saying we want to really establish MHA in this community, and that coincides with your map of where you've got places where you've got challenges with properties, that maybe we could be having those conversations. Because the win here, people, I think, is that people will want to see, if they can't maintain their community as is, they will want to see a legacy of Methodism and spirituality within their community continuing. It's very much like Kathleen was saying this morning, that may be in a whole variety of ways that aren't necessarily the formalised worship, but actually in the care and in the support and in the reaching out to people who are vulnerable, people particularly at the end of life facing loss, facing grief. Actually, we can do a great work together as two organisations in a closer and bonded partnership, working more closely with one another. I think the other thing that's really important about that as well is that because we do have committed to chaplaincy in MHA, and all our homes have between about 15 and 25 hours chaplaincy support, we continue that sense of a faith community, and that is for people of the Methodist tradition, for the Christian tradition, and of other faiths and none. And I can tell you so many stories from our chaplains about where they have been there, walking the journey with people through all sorts of experiences, because they are bringing that spirituality, that faith, into the very presence, into the very heart of the communities in which they are working in those homes. And that's not just for our residents, but that's for their families, and it's for the staff. And if you're a member of staff working in one of our homes, where you see a considerable number of people pass on every year, that takes its toll. And actually, the good that we can do for our staff in terms of that support is amazing, in terms of what we can provide for them in terms of that listening ear and that sense of a bigger journey, which we all know about in terms of our call. So I think there is a huge affinity with every element of the four callings of Methodism, in terms of the worship, in terms of the social care, in terms of the learning, and in terms of the outreach and evangelism. There is a huge work that we can do together. And I am really excited to be leading our organisation at this particular juncture, where we are having those conversations with Property Committee to the Methodist Church, where we are actually having conversations with one particular location in the UK, and I won't be more specific than that, where we're actually starting to motor on this, and this will become a reality. And the very exciting thing, and coming back to Kathleen's point, is it's intergenerational. Because what all our homes are doing and our schemes is gradually building up their capability in terms of working intergenerationally. So all the homes I've been out to have at least got a preschool going in. They've got a mum and toddler group that's been established through the relatives of some of the residents of those homes. They have got the Scouts, the Guides, the Briners, the Boys Brigade. One in Ellesmere Port has got Chester Zoo involved with a bug hotel that the kids from the local community come into, and that's a dementia home. And the life that brings into that community with those young people and their families come in. So then when they have an open day, then when they have their summer or spring fair, they're bringing the community into those places, and they can see the good that is being done. So intergenerational work is at the heart of what we want to do. It's how we want to see ourselves developing in future. I hope you can tell that I'm a bit passionate about this, but it's a real way forward for us as an organisation, but more so I think for us as a partnership with the Methodist Church. So I'm going to stop blethering on now and hand over to Andy.
Thank you, Sam. Andy White, very privileged to be here. Thank you very much. I think Sam is you can probably work out that I've got the higher forehead instantly. Thank you very much on that one, Sam. Our properties, as Sam mentioned, we've got properties across the whole of England. We've got some in Scotland, some also in Wales. And up on there a map to show you. We've got live at home schemes, retirement living. I don't think Sam mentioned we've got 70 retirement living schemes across the country. A whole lot of properties. I've got the wonderful task of actually reviewing those properties and seeing how are they going to contribute to our future strategy. So, referring to it as a portfolio review of our care homes, housing with care, support and living. Primarily looking at how our existing assets contribute to the communities in which they're based, to look at how our assets, our services within those properties are working together, how importantly they're working with the community to establish what those links are, to help ensure that we share a bit of best practice from one area to another. We've got lots of hubs of properties around the country, but we don't necessarily work in the same way and share best practice. It's the silo mentality sort of working that Sam referred to. So we're looking at that as the bedrock to it all. We've got clear aspirations to make sure we have a clear understanding of the quality of our properties, of the services that we provide from those properties and the facilities that we best need to actually provide those services, both now and in the future, so that when we do look in the future to refurbish a property, for instance, when we know it's got a long lifetime there, that we can incorporate key additional features to allow us to extend the work that we're doing. to incorporate music therapy rooms, for instance, where we haven't got one, to incorporate areas for chaplains where we haven't got a specific area, and they're currently operating from the broom cupboard under the stairs, which is not far in some of them, but we provide the right facilities to give our people the best opportunities to provide the best service within the properties and to the broader community. Sustainability is really important to us because clearly we don't want to be investing not only funds but volunteer hours in areas where that is going to go to waste. So we want to make sure that we're investing in the right locations, that we are supporting that investment by additional investment as necessary to make sure that the locations do continue to be sustainable. And this again is where we can work really closely with the church. So I'm sure we've got synergies and we've all got those locations where actually we've got an issue here, we've got an issue here. Look at it together, we make up with a solution that works for us both and more importantly works for the local community, which is what it's all about. So that sustainability is important. A key element of that as well is sustainability in terms of workforce. It's really important that we have the right people working in our properties. And if you go around any of our homes, I can't describe it, I'm not as articulate as Sam, but I describe it, I walk around and there's a bit of fairy dust, a bit of magic that the people, the carers, the managers bring to those homes because they're the right people and they deserve the right support. And we need to make sure we've got that workforce in place. And again, one of those key strands, very, very important. The dreaded financial performance. Clearly, we've got to make sure that we're financially sustainable, that we're charging the right price for the right quality service for the people that we work with, and that where people can't afford that service, we're able to take a sensible approach to making sure we can continue providing services to those people. The financial performance is important. We're a charity. Charities cannot abuse and waste the money that we're actually that we get from our benefactors and the people that volunteer with us. Again, very, very important that we make sure that financial performance is looked after. The strategy that will emerge from this portfolio review will actually allow us to make sure that we invest appropriately, that we know what our long-term commitments are, that we know what we need to do in our homes, and we can do it in a strategic way to make sure that we extend that outreach, that work that Sam mentioned earlier, so that every pound actually helps us achieve additionality in terms of contribution to the local community. It'll help us identify the assets that we can remodel, that we can actually reshape slightly to make sure that again we can provide that better connectivity with the local community, and also the difficult area of possible disposals, possible redevelopments or new developments. We're approaching this from a basis of we're not out there to slash and burn and to get rid of stock and sell things off. We're looking at this on a basis to try and make sure that we can bridge gaps where there are any gaps and that we can actually retain and enhance services. But there may be some very difficult decisions about what we do with properties, and that again is where we can start talking to the church to make sure we do that in a strategic way, and if we can do it in a way that helps the broader community, we will be doing that. So, part of our proposition in strengthening the Methodist Church and our partnership, we want to make sure that our communities are mixed communities, integrated within and influenced by the wider communities. It isn't just an insular thing that we're looking to do. It's for all people, all faiths, all ages, and the intergenerational element of that is really quite key. We all, between us, we've got an amazing number of volunteers and an amazing number of people who want to help in the cause that we're working with and for. It will be great if we mobilise those together as opposed to working separately. In one particular location that I'm not allowed to mention, that we're working and looking at potentially working in great detail on a project with the church. The work that we're doing separately is frankly amazing. The work that we'd be doing together could be just magnificent. It really could be. And that's what we'll be looking to do. It's building upon those strengths of MHA and the church in areas. Forming stronger links. Supporting options for local people. One of our strands is to make sure that we innovate and that we innovate in a positive way rather than things just happening by accident. And so we'll be looking to work with partners like the church. So how can we actually enhance people's lives, older people's lives specifically, in a positive way in the future. We want to work quite innovatively. We want it to relate to services, to properties, but beyond that, it can talk about eco-initiatives, it can talk about apprenticeships. Apprenticeships is a very good way for us to engage with a whole range of age groups in a positive way beyond just property maintenance or care or whatever it may be. We may be able to work, for instance, in terms of property on existing, work with yourselves on existing churches. We can work with yourselves on maintaining landscape areas. Lots of opportunities to work together. Fundamentally, because we're operating with shared values, it allows us to work in perhaps a way we wouldn't work with other organisations. Because we understand each other and where we're coming from, we're able to be a lot more open about our own situation, and the church is equally open with ourselves, so that we can actually overcome a lot of barriers that you tend to get in commercial arrangements where people are potentially coming at things from a different angle. Having said that, it's vitally important, again, that whatever arrangements we have with the church are financially sustainable and help us both unlock existing assets to get the full potential from them. A base for collaborative working between ourselves and the church. So what could that look like? We're looking at mixed communities of care homes, retirement living, general houses, general apartments, a live-at-home scheme, working with the local church. With a live-at-home scheme, where volunteers acting as a glue with members of the church to build a community, keep that community together and outreach to the wider community. We want to work with mixed tenures, with rented properties, open market properties, shared ownership properties, affordable, because again, it's for the whole community. It's not just a specific segment of the community, but obviously our emphasis is for those people who need care and who need additional support and aren't able to provide themselves. It needs to be accessible to a wider community. We're not talking about a closed MHA and church community. That's the bedrock of it, but it needs to be open for all. And the sorts of activities that we're all doing that it just makes me smile when I even go through this list. I mean, music, concerts, choirs, dancing, music therapy, chaplaincy, toddlers, teenagers, parents, quiz leagues, fitness classes, Alzheimer's table tennis. If you ever get the opportunity to go and have a look at an Alzheimer's table tennis therapy session, it's brilliant. Even I can do it, and it's so exciting to see a group of people who would not have the ability to actually go out and enjoy themselves, express themselves with a table tennis. It's brilliant. You've got to get that. I've got a list of homes where we've got them in, so it's worth going to. Do not accept the challenge of having to go yourself, because it takes a while to get used to, and you feel very, very strange when a 95-year-old beats you at Alzheimer's table tennis, honestly. And I was beaten badly. Integrating within the communities. Again, what we need to make sure is that all these activities that we do are not isolated to an MHA property, an MHA live-at-home scheme, or a church. We need to make sure that those activities are integrated and shared within a wider environment. We can share facilities and activities. If we haven't got a facility that we can share, which we probably have in most locations, when we get to the situation of looking at, well, what do we need to do? We can work together at perhaps providing facilities. MHA are not cash rich at the moment, but partly because of the way we've invested recently. We've invested quite heavily in expanding over the last 5 years or so. We are, however, quite asset rich. And as part of our property review, we're going to identify properties potentially that we can look to swap and work with the church to contribute together, put into the pot to allow us to develop and work together. Our Live at Home projects is, I wouldn't say it's a hidden gem, but we don't talk about it as much as we could do. We have a scheme up in Bradford where we've got over 1,000 members in that. It is Bradford, isn't it? 1,000 members that live at home. That's 1,000 members of the community who are volunteering and working with older people. If we replicated that across all 60, even I can work that out, 60,000 people, that's a lot. If you replicate and adapt to that the people that are working with the church, okay, there's duplication, but it is really quite a powerful a group of people who can really add value, and that's the sort of thing we want to stimulate by our future investment in development and work with yourselves. The other area, which again, this is just potentially the final bit, a bit of a wish list about potentially looking at providing domiciliary care to people within the community. It's a really, really difficult area. It's an area that lots of people are pulling out of because it is very difficult. It's a challenge, and it might be something that we can actually roll out and incorporate the live at home sort of principles around a lot more. In finishing, one of the things I'd just like to say is, Sam talked about working with the church with various properties and the like, and trying to work with us. I view that very much as a privilege, that at a time when people are talking about churches being closed, at a time when they're talking about communities in effect losing a bit of a bedrock in their community, that they actually come to MHA and say, what do you think, can you help us? That is a really privileged position that people are coming to us. And what we want to make sure is that in future we can actually work positively with people and help them and guide them. Even when we can't come along and buy a site or develop a site or do anything physically because of resources or whatever, we need to be here as a guiding light in a way, just to help and give people guidance. And we're starting to do that now, and we want to do that a lot more. So if anybody has got any property issues that they want to raise with me, or clearly some may come via Alison over there, please do.